until the Binyan bias Rishon, it never was observed. Because the halacha was that until they came and settled Yerushalayim, etc., established everything, and built the Beis Hamikdash, the mitzvah didn't begin. So it begins when the first Beis Hamikdash was built. Chazal tell us that the Golus Bovel was 70 years, and that 70 years was connected the 70 Shmitot that they didn't observe. It's 490 years. So it's 420 years of the Beis Hamikdash, 410 really. And then the 70 years of Golus Bovel. So it wasn't observed. In the second Beis Hamikdash, when they returned, so then the Gemara says there was no chiyuv in our Torah to observe the Shemitah because there wasn't Rov Yoshveh Oleho. The majority of the Jewish people did not live in the land of Israel. The majority of the Jewish people continued to live in Bovel and in Mitzrayim, later in Italy and other places in the Mediterranean basin. So you had that the diaspora was greater in numbers than those that lived in Israel, which is pretty much the situation we have today as well. Hard to know, hard to make the count, hard to know who's Jewish. But anyway, so during the entire Bayis Sheni, there was also no Shemitah, because there was not Rov Yoshveh Oleho. After the Churban Bayis, there certainly was no Shemitah in Torah, but the Jews weren't there in Eretz Yisrael. So it's nimtza that this is a mitzvah that in Torah was never yet observed as the Torah prescribed, for whatever reasons. And that again figures into the whole halachic discussion regarding the loopholes that exist regarding the Shemitah in our time. So the Meforshim all say that the Shemitah that we have today is a Zecher Shemitah. Now, Shemitah has in it two different components. One component is the agricultural Shemitah, Shemitah regarding the land. The second Shemitah is a monetary one. It's Shemitah's Ksofim. It's a cancellation of debts. That every seventh year, debts are canceled. Now, the Torah warned that people should not take advantage of that, but people are people. So they did take advantage of that. They wouldn't lend money in the fifth or sixth year anymore because they were afraid of Shemitah's Ksofim. So the Gemara in Gittin discusses that Chazal, through Hillel, created what they called the Prus Book, which was a legal document that stated that between the parties agree, so to speak, that the debt that's owed, Reuven owes Shimon, he borrowed 1,000 shekel from Shimon, that 1,000 shekel debt will be transferred to Bezdin. Bezdin is not affected by Shemitah's Ksofim, only individuals are. And therefore, the Bezdin will collect 1,000 shekel and they will see to it that Shimon gets paid. That's the technicality of the Prus Book. And the Prus Book was in effect, it's in effect till today, because there are many of the poskim who hold that even though there is no Shemitah's Karka today in our Torah, but Shmitas Ksofim still applies. And therefore there's a necessity for a crucible. And we usually write the crucible Erev Rosh Hashanah towards the 8th year, before the 7th year departs, to renew the debt in the event that someone owes us money. There's a whole shaila here with banks. It's a very complicated thing in today's economy. But the idea of the crucible still exists. Now it's interesting, the Rosh, in the Chuvas Rosh, the Rosh of Yechiel. So the Rosh was an Ashkenazic Rav. He was a Talmud of the Maram Rotenberg, came from Germany. And he escaped the pogroms in Germany, and he came to Spain in the late 1300s. And he became the Rav in Toledo. And he was an Ashkenazic Rav in a completely Sephardic community. And he writes there that when he was in Toledo, no one wrote a crucible because they told him that their Rabbonim had paskin that Shmitas Ksofim is like Shmitas Karka, and therefore since Shmitas Karka doesn't apply, Shmitas Ksofim doesn't apply either, and that the debts are canceled, and that there is no, they didn't write a crucible. And he writes how he preached in the synagogue that they should listen to him, to the Rosh. And you should write, but he said at the end, only I and my family wrote the crucible. Nobody listened to me. And so there was an entire section of Klal Yisrael that Elma said that they're not bound by Shmitas Ksofim. And this is a discussion throughout the ages. So again, the whole concept here of Shemitah is shrouded in mystery. When is it? How is it? How is the count? What are you supposed to do? Are there heter? So regarding the heter mechira, there was a great dispute. Israel Chonim, Specter, Rav Kovner, David Tevel Minsker, other great Rabbonim, they drew up the heter mechira for the Jews in Eretz Yisrael. I think it was for 1882. They renewed it for 1889. And the Tzriv of Volozhin and other Rabbonim objected to the heter mechira. And it seems said that you're not allowed to even pro forma sell Jewish land in the land of Israel to non-Jews. Said it's a violation of the Yisur D'Oraisa of Lo Sechonim. And therefore he says in order to escape the Rabbanon, they're willing to violate the D'Oraisa. The phrase that he used is that they are running away from the lion into the arms of the bear, which is taken from Tanakh. And therefore, it's remained a controversy till today. Many of the people participating in the controversy are unaware of why it's a controversy. Just like it because it is a controversy. But the Rabbanut here in Israel, Rav Kook wrote a magisterial book called Shabbat Ha'oretz that he published in 1905 when he was the Rav in Yaffo, defending the concept of the heter mechira. And when he became the chief rabbi, he had the chief rabbinate instituted, which is the situation today with modifications. But it was not accepted by certain sections And so for a period of time, they said you could live off the produce of the Arabs in the country. So that also became a shayla, because it still is Eretz Yisrael. Yivul Nochri is itself a question. And then that became a political question and a security question. In our world today, where much of the food that we eat is not homegrown. So I think 2 years ago, all the tomatoes in Israel were imported because they had to deal with countries. Even though we're the ones that invented the cherry tomatoes and other things like that. And the United States supplied, and still supplies, a great proportion of the grain that is here in the state of Israel, because under an old American law, Israel is still a developing country. So you have to help it out. That's why, for instance, the Israeli matzahs are cheaper than the American matzahs, because the grain was given to them free. So all of this is part of the great concept of the Shmita, which remains today. It remains to be a live issue with different opinions. And to say that there's clarity on the matter would be an exaggeration. But nevertheless, there are halachic authorities on every side of the issue. One cannot say one is right and one is not right. But we do our best regarding this unique mitzvah min Torah. It's probably one of the few things that outside the Beis Hamikdash itself that never really was in actuality put into effect in Jewish life during the long history of Klal Yisrael as a mitzvah min Torah. Rabbi Hanani ben Akash,